All right, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is you're having. Paradigm shifters. And welcome to our August continuation of this topic ability, capability, and thrivability. And Paradigm Shifters, we are a global growing community that is dedicated to shift and uplift the entire planet. Yeah. And we're about 1,500 people strong right now in 56 countries. And I am so thrilled to have, our guest speaker today, Lynne Harley from Canada. And she is cycling across Canada for a cause. And I'm going to have Lynne come on and explain like what her why is, her passion, just everything, because I just do know that you're out there and you're taking action steps, and not only for Canada but for entire globe. So come on in here, Lynne. It's all yours. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Judy. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here. And I just lived into a big what if I could. I was just on national TV in Canada, and they are giving me a little clip of what I'm doing to share my why and my vision. So Judy and I have never met in person, but virtually we are in some similar coaching circles. And so, just a brief introduction is that I'm also a transformational life coach and life mastery coach and consultant. And so, the book for the inspiration for what I'm doing. So, I started this cycling tour on June 19th of this year, and I left from Saskatchewan. So, I'm living in a different province, but I'll give you a little bit of background for this. So, my younger brother, Craig, died sadly 5 years ago. Today, they asked me about my brother in the interview, and I said he was so intelligent. He was a wonderful conversationalist. He was articulate. He had his moments where he was so funny and kind and sensitive, and he struggled with mental health for most of his adult life. And he died I got the call, I guess, when I was pulling my kayak out of Pike Lake Provincial Park outside of Saskatoon 5 years ago on Father's Day, that they had found my brother dead. And so, of course, there was that time for grieving, which was, it was a time of loss for me. Actually, my mom had died not too much earlier than that, so I felt like it was kind of a double whammy at the time. And so then, as I started to move forward with my life and completed my coaching certification, because my background is in social work, and I decided that I was not ready to be fully retired, but very much enamored with the programs through the Brave Thinking Institute, that I went on to take my coaching certification and began coaching clients, which is just really a passion and a love for me. And as I was coaching, and we talk about paradigms, I'm sure everybody on this call knows what a paradigm is. This book started to run through my mind. And I mean, it's a rhyming book. I could, verses were already starting up. And it's funny because I was talking to a partner in Believing back then, and I said, well, is this just a paradigm? Is this just a distraction from me building my business? That's where I went initially. Is this a delay? Because I was in the process of building, but it just wouldn't leave me alone. So I finally just sat down with it in the evening, and really it felt like a download. And of course, I had to do some editing and going back and forth, but it really felt inspired. And this book is about a little caterpillar who can think. And what I love is the fact that as nature doesn't think, nature has this beautiful way of becoming. And we know that the caterpillar, without thinking about anything, is going to become a beautiful, beautiful butterfly. And again, in the coaching that we do, we talk about longing and discontent as signals for growth. And sadly, we often shut them down with the voice that goes, well, you just be grateful for what you have, who do you think you are? And so this in this book, the caterpillar can think, and he's following the cycle of a caterpillar to a butterfly. So he's been eating leaves for weeks, and now he's feeling like he's ready for something new, and he doesn't know what. But he starts to go, he's hanging upside down now, which happens before they start to build their cocoon. And for the first time, he's looking around. And I just love the metaphor of this, because to me, when you're on the branch eating leaves, it's the condition-based thinking. It's, this is what's in front of me. This is my work to do. I better not think of anything else. Now, suddenly this caterpillar is hanging upside down and he's looking at this beautiful, colorful world and seeing all kinds of things. And he has longing and discontent. He wants more than just being on this branch eating leaves. So, he hears from a voice, well, what would you love? What would you love? And I think that's inside each one of us. When we're experiencing discontent and longing, it's a signal, well, I don't want more of that, but I would love more of this. So he starts to think, well, I would love to fly. I'd love to drink nectar instead of like eating leaves. I'd love to be so beautiful that, when I flew by, people would point at me. And he falls into sleep with this vision full of wonder in his mind. And when he awakes, he looks around and sadly, nothing's changed. And this is often what it feels like for us when we dream our big dream. It's like, okay, well, nothing's changing yet. And now he's not just hearing from this voice that says, what would you love? He's hearing from the voice that goes, well, who do you think you are? Flying, drinking nectar? Ha, ha, And, even when you think about it, we often think that our dreams are so audacious. But when you think about a caterpillar, the fact that it will eventually fly and turn into a beautiful butterfly is a pretty big stretch from being this little caterpillar on a branch. So he feels very shut down when he hears from that voice and very afraid. Like, how can this ever happen to me when I have this feeling, And then he, is very discouraged for some time until he hears from another voice that says, but what if you could? What if you could and believe and the way will be made? So this is my little caterpillar and this is my little book. And it's just a book to me that's written for all ages. And I've shown it to people that I've coached. I met a woman in a campground a week ago who read it and started to cry when she read it. She said, you know what? I have 3 children in their 20s. I'm buying this gift for them. This is a book that everybody needs to read. And I think that, so now to tie it into my mission. So I was writing this book. When I was writing it, of course, I was thinking about my brother and probably the whole idea. I think when we don't live in mental health and wellness, we give credence to that voice that shuts us down. And when we're really living from wellness, that voice will always be there. And I think that part of what I want to make aware in terms of mental health and wellness is that let's normalize the voice that's going to show up and say, who do you think you are? Everybody has it. Everybody has it. And I mean, I had it when I started to think about writing the book. Well, who do you think you are? You've never written anything. You're not an author. Who's going to buy it? How are you going to sell it? How are you going to get it out there? And so, that voice is going to show up no matter what, because you are looking at something that's outside of what you know. It's your comfort zone. And so I thought about my brother, who I think, had all of these wonderful qualities, but wasn't able to silence that voice that, was maybe going, how could your life ever be better? Look at it. You're not happy, whatever it is, whatever people who struggle with mental health and wellness, think about. So I decided that I was going to dedicate the book to him, which I've done. It's in memory and celebration of his life, because although I can't bring him back, we can't change the past, I think that we can use experiences that have maybe been painful to create a bigger and brighter future. And so I started researching that if I wrote this book, and even the way we coach, learning about abundance and, giving, I made a decision before I even decided who it would be with, that I wanted to tie the portion of each book in support of mental health. And if you have questions, stop me, Judy, but I'll keep going.
I'm so curious about the decision to cycle across Canada and what it is that it's changing in you, in your perception of just period. Well, and I read like you'd never cycled that long of a distance. And
I've never cycled. Yeah, I've never cycled. So I'm going to go.
Like in that mission, one, the question I have is, how do you stay focused on a bike ride through all kinds of weather and everything? And what is it that's driving you to do this, to continue? Because that is just awesome. Because you could have just sat back in an office, blah, 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 blah. But you're taking action about actually moving your body and cycling. So that's what I really, yeah.
Yeah.
Mental
Well, I
health.
think what I've shared up till now is sort of the foundation of the dream. The cycle wasn't even part of this dream. It's just that I wanted to write the book. I did my research. I love the organization that I chose because they work with youth and they want to revolutionize the way we think about mental health. And I
Right
love
there,
that
right
mission
there. What is
statement.
that? That's I'm a former special ed teacher, and I've seen so many things like what you experienced with your brothers happen with so many children. So yeah, keep going, keep going. It's so important.
Yeah. So again, Jack was the son of a couple who committed suicide in his first year at Queen's University, and they said they had no idea that he was struggling. And so what they're doing now is they're really trying to open up the communication that anyone who is struggling feels like they can come forward, because there's still a lot of stigma around mental health. There's still a lot of shame. If I say what's going on with me, I think that social media is not helpful. Often you read posts and everybody's doing great and maybe you're not. And it's easy to, get into comparison despair. We know about that. So anyways, at this point, I knew that I wanted to donate to jack.org. I had spoke to the founder. The book wasn't even published. It was just written. And then as I started to take action steps, and again, I'm coaching myself, I'm really living into what I coach people, is first of all, it's do what you can from where you are with what you have. So then I found out that the whole publishing business is a jungle, or what's the word I want to say? It's interesting. I mean, there's all kinds of criteria. There's some publishers that you need an agent for. Some publishers don't want rhyming books. This is children's stuff. And then you'll get a message saying, if you submit, know that you won't hear anything for 3 to 6 months, and you may not even ever hear anything back. It's just that you haven't been accepted. So I just kept putting it out. I kept thinking, I have this idea, just keep putting it out, keep putting it out. And I think for me, and this has been the most prominent thought that has led me through these last couple of months, is that I don't need to know the way, because Spirit does. So even when I was putting it out and I wasn't hearing anything, I would just affirm, you know what, Lynne, you don't need to know how. Spirit does. That's none of your business. Do what you need to do next. So then how this whole experience was born. So on May 1st, and I think I have another book to write, I went on a cycling tour for a day trip. So I love to cycle. Over the years, I've joined different groups where we go out for like a 25K ride, end up having a meal or something after, right? So I had joined this group prior to COVID, and this is the first time I cycled with them. And we went on a couple-hour ride, and I met 2 women on that ride who toured. And again, this was pre-COVID. And so one had gone right across Canada from her driveway all the way to Newfoundland, back to New Brunswick. And they both had cycled New Zealand, which is supposed to be a beautiful country to cycle in. And as I heard their stories, I was starting to just light up. I thought, oh my God, what an amazing experience. That's what I said to myself. And honestly, I had no context for what I was getting into. And I think that that's probably what happens when we dream big. First we have the vision, we have the excitement. I really teach people, like, if it lights you up, if you feel on fire for this, like, know that this is coming from something outside of you. This to me is spirit working. So I just thought, well, I haven't been this excited about anything for a long time. And then interestingly, this is the other thing I've learned, is that the quote by Thoreau is, when you advance confidently in the direction of your dreams, endeavoring to live into the life you love, all sorts of things begin to happen. And as I look back, I mean, I've been awed by, and I just leave in the morning and think, I have no idea where I'm going tonight. I have no idea where I'm sleeping tonight, but I don't need to. I have a vision that I'm going to be warm. I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be cared for. I'm going to be loved. This or something better yet. And it's been such a testament for me to really lean into faith, which I don't know if I had this kind of faith before I started. So anyways, everything happened so fast, and as I was doing it, and so this was May 1st, and within a week, I started looking for bikes that would support me. These 2 women said they would support me with what I needed for supplies. The challenge was COVID, because people are not getting supplies in the way they did pre-COVID. I didn't, even to buy a bike, it's like they were snapped up as soon as they got into a store. I lived in a smaller community. I had to travel to the city. But anyways, it started to come together again. I'm going to say synchronistically. And then my book was suddenly accepted by a publisher. So again, it's like I'm advancing confidently and now things are happening. And so often we want to wait and see that this has to happen before I can do this, before I can do this. And the other thing that really supported me, I mean, it's been a real journey of coaching myself, as I've even been writing in my posts. And one of it was, okay, I'm getting so ahead of myself and so excited here that I just for a moment here lost my thought.
Oh, it's great.
So I'm buying all the gear, and then now my book is being published, and when I got the book, I'll just skip, maybe that thought will come back to me, and loaded it. So I'm traveling with 4 panniers. I think people have seen pictures of it, and it's like a lot of weight. And honestly, the first time I got on my bike, it terrified me. And this is when I thought I had no idea what I was getting into. This is like the difference between a gun and a loaded gun. That's what I thought. And I'd had a cycling accident about 5 years ago, which scared me. And I probably have a little bit of trauma related to that. And all of a sudden now I'm going to be traveling with all of this weight. And up until Ontario, I was traveling really on secondary highways, but with a lot of traffic, semi-traffic, which really scared me, crosswinds, which really scared me. And when you ask me what kept me going, you know, the times when I'd have those moments like, what am I doing? I remember specifically one day, there was a really bad crosswind. And so you kind of get caught in the wind gust when a semi passes. And I just got off the road and I went into a gas station, and there was only one other woman in it. She's an older woman. And I don't know, we just started talking about what I was doing. People looked at my bike, I'm heavily loaded. And she just had a story about the losses she's experienced. You know, she reached into her purse, she, you know, pressed $20 into my hand and said, this is for the organization you're riding for. And I just thought it was like I would get that little, what's the word, prompt or hit from spirit. That's what it's like. Don't, you know what? Okay, this is what you need to keep fueling the fire. And it just seemed like when I did have those moments where I felt kind of despairing about how I'm going to do this, and that there would be something that would override it and it would get me back on my bike again. And then I just started to see, the more I let go and not needing to know who was going to help me, how I was going to be supported, just phenomenal experiences of people I just met saying, you know, would you like to come and stay with us? I was met an older gentleman who was cycling, and we stopped and talked. And I just met a cyclist in the park where they were filming me. And it's just like, you've got this instant connection, even though these people are just biking without panniers, they're still excited to meet somebody who's cycling. And I said, well, I'm just going to go to the campground, you know, I'm looking for a site. And the next thing I knew, I'm riding my bike through the campground, and the mosquitoes are plentiful up in Canada this year. And all of a sudden there was a white van behind me, and him and his wife said, would you like to stay with us? Would you like to come and have supper with us? And just incredibly supportive. And I'm meeting people with phenomenal stories. I mean, this couple had actually won the World Open Cycling Championships in 2009 in Australia. And he's 89 and she's 84 now. So I've just met some really exceptional people. And I think that, but I want to say, are they exceptional, or am I just slowing down enough to hear what they're sharing? And
Oh, yeah. And I was like, perhaps you being exceptional is attracting other exceptional people. And I love that, you know, you said something that just like, whoop, there it is, right there it is. That, and then I thought, wow, you are reaching people by being out there on a bike, and that wouldn't necessarily find you, but they've got the pain, they've got the stories. They needed to face see you. And that on all those small communities, by you dropping that pebble, you'll go out. And it doesn't have to be on social media. It doesn't have to be all the way it's supposed to be. You're doing it uniquely. And what a What a gift. And you're probably, I'm just guessing, you're probably getting in better shape than you ever have been in your life.
I think my legs are stronger, that's for sure. And yeah, I mean, I didn't, what if I could? I usually try to take rest days here and there, but now I've had support and I had an accident a few weeks ago, which did scare me. But again, I thought how much worse it could have been. There's this part of me, it's not like I was just like, oh my gosh, if this had happened the day before when I was flying down a hill, I wouldn't even want to have known how it ended. So again, it's like if it was just, and I don't take it as a roadblock, I take it as feedback. I am so inexperienced that I was not checking my gear. And my pannier bolt, the nut on my pannier had shaken loose and my panniers fell down and I went flying. And again, I think, how come I didn't break my jaw? How come I didn't break my wrists? I broke my hands, my fall with my hands. How come I didn't cut my lip with my teeth? Like everything just hit. And so, I mean, I walked away from that thinking I was a little bit scared, of course, of the experience, but I just thought, again, oh my gosh, it could have been so much worse, and I want my vision is that this will end well. And so I had the opportunity to regroup and I went back to people who didn't know me when they took me in. It was through a person that I met at a networking meeting in Toronto who just welcomed me. And when I had my accident and called them, they were just like, oh, come back. Like they kept me for 4 days. And, they don't know me from anything, but I think I just made so many friends on this trip and people now reaching out as I go along, like, where are you? How are you doing? Good job. So that's also been fueling me. But I think, in terms of what's kept me going is the daily action. And having a destination. I mean, it's not about the destination so much as the journey, but I just know that ultimately this is where I'm going. I've been recalibrating. I realized I couldn't go around Lake Superior given a health concern I have. And so I did a post on, could it be a this and instead of an either or? And again, I think that, when we live from condition-based thinking, we either think it has to be this way or it can't be at all. So I recalibrated. I took a train with my bike and got off on the other end and just started cycling again. And it's just, I feel like these are inspired thoughts. There's just, I think that's the other thing I'm learning to trust is the thoughts that are serving my vision. And I could have just stopped. And as I was getting closer to Winnipeg and knowing what was ahead of me and reading posts from other people, I thought, I know that my doctor would not in any way sanction this. He didn't even want me to do the ride. But I've also, I think I've gone into this ride being really thoughtful of what I'm capable of. I'm perhaps not riding the way I've got friends who are younger than me cycling purely for the touring and doing, 100, 130 kilometers a day. I'm doing 30, I've done 100 kilometers one day when I had just a wicked tailwind, but probably, 40 to 70 is kind of, that's enough for me. And I think it's been a great experience for me to say, I don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore. And yet there have been times where I think, well, what will people think? Are they going to think that? I mean, it's the first thought that comes up. And now I've got, a new mantra that I need to do this my way. This is my ride. And as long as I'm, it's not about the miles that I'm putting on so much as the connections and talking about my book, jack.org, my brother, listening to people's stories. Everybody, I don't care who you are, everybody has been impacted by somebody who has struggled with mental health.
Yes, and this is so perfect right here. And then I want two more questions, and then we're going to put you back on your bike. And so the first one is, if you have a message that you would love, like what is it that you would a tip or someone for this community? Um, your message. What is one or two tips that you would give to our community that you found?
Okay, well, this is going to be cliche because I love the title on my book, but when a big dream comes up, to really lean into what if you could, and this is a line directly from my book, believe and a way will be made. It will be. It absolutely will be. And we don't see that all the time, you know. And when I'm coaching, I say, if you're driving in the nighttime, and for me, if I'm driving from, okay, I'm in Kingston right now to Ottawa at night, I only need to see as far as my headlights shine.
Perfect. I love it. And it ties into like, what if I could? Believe
Exactly.
the way will be shown. So the
Yeah.
second question is, as a community, for first of all, thank you so much for taking time out to to have
Thank
us
you.
live vicariously with your dream.
My pleasure.
What would you love to have our community hold for you for the next part of your journey? For what would you love to have us hold for you personally?
Well, one of my mantras and visions is that I am going to pass Robert Munch and Dr. Zeus before the finish line. I really think that this message is so beautiful. And even as I did research, you know, in terms of children's stories, I don't know if there's many that talks about those two voices we hear from. I think that if we can instill in young children, you know, and my first review came from my two great nephews. Arthur's 4 and Merlin is 7. And so my sister-in-law wrote and said, Arthur, you know, they bought a book for each of them and they read it to them separately. And Arthur, she says, Arthur, who's 4, loves to draw. He, you know, when he looked at the pictures, he saw the illustrations when he was done. She said he wondered if maybe he could be an illustrator. What if he could be an illustrator? And then Merlin, who wants to be a doctor, it was the same thing. So there's a really wonderful opportunity for conversation with parents about what would you love? What would you love to be if anything were possible? And he wanted to be a doctor. And when he finished the book, he thought maybe he could be a doctor too.
This is good. Okay, well, here you go. We're gonna, as a community, we're putting some energy out there, all the way up to Canada, or all the way around the can. I say up
Around the world.
around the world.
This book to go international. And I love that we're in such an international community of
Absolutely.
coaches and that we're doing this kind of work for transformation. And like I said, coaches are actually purchasing this book for clients.
Mhm.
The woman who I shared my book with, because I finally had a copy when I was in the campground, and she cried. She said, you know, my kids, I see this. It's like, well, I should be going to this school instead of this, or, you know, just different pressures, and they're not listening to the voice, they're listening to condition-based thinking.
All right, well, here we go. We're putting some energy around you. We're going to wrap this up. Here you go.
Thank
We're
you.
sending it to you, and all your whole job is to receive. Here you go. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time for this. I feel very, very blessed that you're on this journey and totally support you and everything that you do.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you
It's
so much.
a beautiful opportunity. And when this call ends and when I get settled, I would love to have a conversation with you, Judy.
Oh, awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.